Hello everyone, this is Dr. Julia with Harmonious Living. I'm so glad that you joined me. So come on in and take a seat and make yourself comfortable. As a life coach, it is my goal to help you live a more harmonious life with purpose, passion, positivity, and power. In this season, I have 10 episodes of inspiration and wisdom. In order to receive the maximum benefit from this season, try to listen to the podcast in their entirety. One more thing, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review about the tips and practical advice given in this episode. If you need life coaching, please contact me. The information is in the description box. Now, let's get into today's episode. There's an old adage that states that the apple does not fall far from the tree. I usually hear this about individuals who act like one of their parents. A parent that struggles with addiction, a father who is a womanizer, or one who was raised in a family of con artists or grifters. Most of us have learned about these behaviors in Psychology 101, describing personality traits in human behavior that's dependent on nature or nurture. The nurture perspective states that you're a product of your environment and there's nothing you can do about it. I'll give you an example with John Smith. Even though this is a very common name, he's a fictional character. According to theory, John didn't have a chance to be anything other than a criminal because his father, Joe, showed him the ropes at an early age. The Smith family would move into a neighborhood, be active in the community, invite the neighbors over for cookouts, wine and dine them, gain their trust, find their weaknesses, and then strike and swindle them out of their hard-earned money. Joe would invite the men over to play poker with marked cards, and he was careful not to win big until they were ready to leave town. His wife was a great hostess and would have the women over for Saturday brunch and book club.
Hey, Ben.
Never heard anything so crazy.
I know Chelsea's not coming today. Renee worked in. The kid closing on was great.
She would encourage all the women to put their coats and purses in the bedroom so John would have time to take pictures of photo IDs and credit cards so they could use at a later date. Before the neighbors realized they had been taken for a ride, the Smiths had already moved on to the next town. Now John Smith, he's in the federal penitentiary doing 20 years for embezzlement. Now Lucy May and her family are the next fictional characters I will use to illustrate the nature perspective. The nature theory posits that your behavior is predetermined because it is hereditary, or it's in your genes, so to speak.
Just imagine the gossip train having a field day on this. Girl, did you hear that Lucy May is about to become a great-grandmother? She's only 51. She had her firstborn when she was 17, right before her graduation, and she gave birth to a daughter that she named Misty May. Oh, she was a cute little thing. Do you remember? Well, you may not know this, but Misty May had her son Mikey when she was 17, right before her graduation. Does that sound familiar? This is just between you and me, but I just heard that her son Mikey May, who just turned 17, you know the kid, he plays football with my son. Well, I just heard that his girlfriend Mary May, a cheerleader, is about to give birth to his baby any day now. I know what you're thinking. They're not related. They're not kissing cousins. May is Mary's middle name, not her last name.
Girl, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Is it in the water or is it in the blood? Is it nature or nurture? When you hear stories about other people that resemble John Smith and Lucy May, what is your first reaction? Did the bad apple ruin the whole bunch? Do you judge others without really knowing them? In hindsight, you may have made different choices at age 17 if you knew then what you know now. Children don't have choices, but adults do. I am not dismissing the fact that genetics and culture influence how we live and the decisions we make. Life happens, but ultimately, we all have a choice about how we want to live our lives. John Smith had a choice about whether or not to continue in the family business of being grifters. Lucy May could have talked to her children and grandchildren about the pros and cons of having children at an early age and the measures to prevent teenage pregnancy. These are two good examples of how life coaching can help individuals make better decisions and stop the downward spiral of the generational curse. Now let's talk about you and what tree you have fallen from. Using fruit as an analogy, what fruit best describes you? Are you tart, bitter, sweet, ripe or green, naive, and lacking experience? Are you still on the vine, still developing, or have you fallen to the ground? You've been stepped on, abused. Are you rotting in the fields? You feel like you're looked over, you're not chosen, and you're not feeling good enough. Feelings like these usually begin in childhood. When adults talk about having regrets in their childhood, one of the most common issues talked about is the feeling of being emotionally deprived of the love and attention that they wanted so desperately from one or both of their parents. I will categorize the emptiness or unresolved issues as rotten fruit. For example, let's say that you're the third of four children. Even though your mother was a stay-at-home mom, you never felt like she gave you enough attention because your older siblings were in charge of taking care of you during the day. They resented having you around and didn't treat you fairly, or they just ignored you. When you wanted a hug from your mom, or you just wanted her to sit down and read a book with you, she said she was too busy with the baby and go back in the other room and play with your brothers and sisters.
That's my toy. Give it back right now. Mommy! Mommy!
Does that sound familiar? As an adult, you never spend any time alone. You're always partying in Uptown or Deep Ellum or at someone else's home. Even though you do not like sports, you make sure that you are always invited to someone sweet to watch the Dallas Cowboys or Mavericks, trying to fill that empty hole. This is the reason your friends describe you as needy and clingy. In another scenario, let's say that your father worked in town and was home by 6 p.m. every day after work until you turned 14. Then he got a promotion. His new position required him to travel extensively, so he was away from home for days at a time. He never made it to your games or your recitals and was always a day or two late for your birthday. Sometimes he would come home with a present, and sometimes he did not. During high school, you missed his hugs, and you missed seeing his face and hearing the fruit of his lips. The fruit was his advice and words of encouragement at the dinner table, and while you ran errands with him on the weekend. As an adult, you refuse to accept any jobs that require travel, even though they pay more and your family could use the extra income. You're present for all of your kids' games, their birthday parties, recitals, and you know that's a good thing. But, and there's always a but, you have been described as a helicopter parent because you're always hovering around. You never give your children any time to breathe and no time to be alone with themselves or with their friends. It's important to realize that you are not your dad. Stop carrying that childhood emotional baggage. It's time to unpack and throw out all the old and tattered feelings of yesterday. As you can see from the example, nurture is on a continuum. Looking back at how you grew up, you may decide not to do the same things your parents did, and sometimes you will choose to do the complete opposite. It may be difficult to break old patterns of behavior, but my point is that it is possible, and it is your choice. Don't do things just because Mama did it, Papa did it, Bubba did it, and even Susie Q. I strongly advise you not to go to extremes, but find a place in the middle. The next thing I want to discuss with you is your relationship history. It's time for you to realize that some people are in your life for only a reason, only a season. Don't ignore the red flags when the relationship begins to dry up and turn cold. If you're constantly in and out of relationships, especially bad ones, then it may be time for you to take a break from dating and just be with you. When I mention this, it always makes people uncomfortable, and you're no exception. It's my job to make the comfortable uncomfortable, because that is the only way change will happen. It takes quite a commitment not to date for a while, because some people are of the belief they will not be able to give up sex. Of course, it's up to you, but going from one person to the next is often full of drama and does not allow you to focus on yourself. Being alone means that you can't drown out the noise in your head with someone else's problems. Take a break from looking for your better half when you are cracked and broken. That may sound harsh, but I just want to give you a different way to look at this. Who wants half of a man or half of a woman? Don't expect someone else to be everything you are not. If there is something rotting inside of you, don't ignore it anymore and get to the core of the matter. Life is about growth, maturity, forgiveness, and second chances. Sometimes it takes a third or fourth chance to get things right. Take your time to regroup and be made whole. Once you become whole, you'll be able to recognize the red flags, so don't settle for less and feel obligated to stick around and put that on your plate. There's always a way to change the course of life's unpleasant circumstances. Do not give up and be unfruitful. If you live in a bad neighborhood, or if you live with someone who is not good for you, then it is of the utmost importance for you to move as soon as possible. We have all been there. Maybe you don't have the money now, but make a plan and calculate the amount of money you need to make in order to pay movers, put a deposit on a new place, turn on utilities, as well as having the money for the increase in rent or mortgage. It may take you 2 years to save enough money by working overtime or getting a part-time job along with your full-time job. In life, sacrifices always have to be made. It is well worth it to make a 2-year commitment in order to live better indefinitely. Once your environment changes for the better, you will feel better, you will act better, and you will look better. Now it's time to decide whether or not you're going to be fruit from the womb, living a meaningful and purposeful life, or are you fruit from the loom, stiff, fabricated, and just getting by? In order to keep moving forward, there are other fruits that you need to cultivate that consist of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Stop gossiping and focus on what is true, honest, pure, and report the good things in life. Think on these type of things. Many of you have heard this before, but you did not act on it. Now is the time to look in the mirror and make a change. The next suggestion I have for you is to surround yourself with positive, kind, and loving people. Find groups in your area that interest you. For example, join a book club, tennis club, or start playing pickleball, which is so popular now. I hear that even Jamie Foxx is playing that. Or get into a gym and start working out. Find a place of worship, a self-help group. Whatever your interests, you can find like-minded people. Certain groups will meet in person and other groups will meet online. Look around, visit, put your toe in the water before you choose. Observe them, get to know them, and in time you will know if that group is for you, because you will know them by their fruit. To reiterate, positive attitudes and acts of kindness lead to positive relationships and fruitful and productive living. It's not about making or breaking a New Year's resolution. This is a daily walk and a lifelong walk. Give to others in the way you want them to give to you. Well, we're coming to the end of this podcast. And in this segment, I've shown you how nature and nurture influence the way you were raised, the choices you make, and the type of relationships you are involved in. I've also given you suggestions on how to live a better life with the fruit of the Spirit. I enjoyed being with you, and I hope you enjoyed the podcast as well. For your individual life coaching and consulting sessions, please DM me on Instagram at Dr. Julia Floyd. And please follow me on YouTube and Facebook. The links are in the description box. Before you go, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review because we're all in this together. And I'll see you next time on Harmonious Living with Dr. Julia. Ciao.